Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Mobilize Your Organization. I'm Jennifer DeCesare, and with me today is Nicole Ferguson. So for those of you that haven't attended one of our webinars before, we'll be recording the session and we'll email you a recording along with a PDF of the slides after the webinar. If you have any follow-up questions about this webinar, feel free to contact Nicole or myself using the emails listed at the end of the presentation. During the webinar, if you have any questions about the content that we're presenting, please use the Q&A panel. Be sure to choose Ask All Panelists, type your question in the box, and click Send. We'll also pause throughout the webinar to take questions, and then we'll take more again at the end, but feel free to type in your question at any time. Today's session will focus on providing information on how to integrate Esri's mobile apps with Cityworks for improved asset management workflows. We'll review a few main apps that you may find beneficial for your workflows. So first, we're going to take a look at Collector, which can be used from something as simple as data collection to being tied with your inspection workflows. Next, we'll take a look at how you can integrate work orders using Workforce. Third, we'll review how Survey 123 can be leveraged for inspections. And then lastly, we'll take a look at using ERLs in Operations Dashboard for easy analysis and reporting. So we have a quick poll today to see if your organization currently uses any of the Esri mobile apps. So we're just going to upload the poll here. So please choose a response that best fits for your workflow or best fits for you, and then click Submit. So there's 4 options. Yes, you have the apps and they're integrated with Cityworks. Yes, but they're not yet integrated with Cityworks. No, but we're excited to see how we can leverage the apps with Cityworks. Or we do not currently have Cityworks but are interested in learning more. So it seems that more and more organizations are moving towards the use of these mobile apps, especially for field work. They're simplified interfaces that are easy to use and can help improve your day-to-day workflows. There's a shift away from using paper for work activities in the field, not only for environmental and organizational reasons, but also because the mobile apps provide a way to manage real-time data and improve communication between field workers and office staff, even if mainly through the sharing of data. So I should also talk a little about Cityworks as well. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Cityworks, it's a GIS-centric asset management system, which is a mouthful, I know. So in other words, it's an asset management software that leverages Esri technology for the mapping component. It allows organizations to manage, track, analyze, and score their infrastructure assets. With the configuration of the mobile apps that we'll discuss today, it can also be used to track your field staff and their workloads in order to streamline your field operations. So it looks like the poll results came in, and it looks like most of you went with option B, which means you do have the apps, but they're not yet integrated with Cityworks. So that's really good to see. We'll briefly touch a little bit on the apps, and we'll focus a little bit more on the integration, but we still will try to cover everything just so that everybody has all of the information that they need. All right, so first up in the webinar today is Collector. So this is a great app that makes accurate data collection easy from a handheld device. So what exactly is Collector? So Collector is an app from Esri that allows users to collect and edit GIS data. It leverages web maps and associated data that are tied to your ArcGIS Online or Portal for ArcGIS named user. This includes both hosted feature layers and also ArcGIS Server feature services that are added as items in your ArcGIS Online or Portal for ArcGIS organization. So what are some of the benefits of Collector? Well, first, it allows for simple data collection and editing. So we've found that a lot of organizations require a simple and user-friendly solution for collecting data, because generally speaking, the staff that's collecting the data in the field has little GIS experience, and Collector offers a simple solution for this. It also provides access to real-time data. So as users are collecting new assets or updating existing attribute information in the field, the GIS database is updated automatically, allowing the organization as a whole to have access to the information right away. It supports disconnected editing as well, which allows you to take your maps and data offline when needed, and then sync the changes once you're connected again. Another benefit is that it uses the device's GPS to get the location. And in addition to this, external receivers can also be added for increased accuracy. So Collector can also assist you with building a comprehensive repository of GIS or asset data that you can then leverage in Cityworks. Not only does it allow organizations to record new assets, it also provides a way for users to update information about the assets, as well as capturing photos to enhance the data. Another benefit that I think is a key point for many organizations is that it allows for QA/QC workflows when using version data. So it's really great to have the field staff collecting the data since they're the experts on the assets. However, many organizations want their GIS professionals to verify the data collected for quality control. By building a version workflow for use with Collector, the field staff can then collect the data, and then the GIS team has a chance to QA/QC the data before it's pushed into the production Cityworks site. So how does Collector enhance our Cityworks experience? Well, as mentioned, one of the big items in this list is building the repository of asset data to use in Cityworks. In addition to this, Collector has been integrated with version 5 of the Cityworks mobile native app. So this means that organizations using Cityworks 15.2 or higher will be able to use this integration. So what exactly does the integration do? Well, when you're using the Cityworks mobile native app, users can open a work activity. If a location is associated with it, then there's an option to launch Collector directly from the Cityworks mobile native app, which just provides a more streamlined process for field staff that need to make edits to the asset data while they're out in the field. In general, this integration with Collector can really empower your field staff and assist in improving their efficiency. So what are some of the requirements to get Collector configured? Well, first of all, Collector requires at least one editable feature layer in the web map. If this isn't there, then Collector cannot see the web map at all. In addition to this, the web map and feature layers need to be accessible and shared to the user logged into Collector. Lastly, when you're using Collector in combination with Cityworks, the web map in Cityworks needs to be the same that's available to the same user in Collector. So now that we know the requirements on the Collector side, let's take a look at the Cityworks requirements. So on the Cityworks side, there's a few additional configurations that need to be made. The web map that's used in Collector needs to be accessible by the Cityworks mobile user. So this is basically the reverse of the point that I just made on the previous slide. Users must log into the native app using either their ArcGIS Online or Portal for ArcGIS named user account, which allows the direct launch of Collector from the Cityworks app. Work activities must also have an XY location in order to launch Collector. So this basically enables the link in Collector to display through the Cityworks app. So now that we've gone over the basics, let's see Collector in action. So I'm going to pass things over to Nicole now for our first demo.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so let's take a look at Collector. We're going to see how Cityworks field workers can collect and edit GIS data tied to an inspection. Let's say that we are part of a forestry crew that has just planted some new trees and we need to add this new data to our GIS. To do this, we can log into Collector from our mobile device. For the sake of this demo, we've generated a generic field crew login, so I'm going to go ahead and log in to ArcGIS Online with this user. So next we need to select the appropriate web map to work with. The maps listed here are the ones that have been shared with the ArcGIS Online group that our field crew user belongs to. So I'm going to select our forestry Collector map since this includes our tree layer, which I will be adding to. So the nice thing about Collector is that it zooms to your current location when you first open the map. However, our demo data is located in Lethbridge, Alberta, so I've disabled location tracking in Collector for now, as I'm currently based back in our corporate office in Toronto. So we've just planted a new tree and need to collect this location by adding a feature to our GIS layer. Now, as I previously mentioned, the benefit of Collector is that it always wants to help you by zooming to your current location. If I were working in the field next to the new tree, the map would zoom to my location and I could use this location value to collect a new feature. Since I don't have this enabled, I will zoom to the park where we were working. Okay, so to collect our new tree feature, I can select our plus icon. And this expands our Collect New Feature panel. So now we can add some information about the feature. So facility ID is important as this is the entity UID field back in Cityworks. So let's add a value. going to say our value is 41 and select Done. So now we can update our tree condition. And I'm going to say this is a new tree and select Done. So lastly, we'll give it a location. To do this, we'll tap the map icon on the top menu bar. And then we're going to tap the map to add a feature at that location. So I'm going to say we planted our tree right here. Again, if you had location services enabled, your current location would be used by default and you would not have to complete this step. So this is all the information we need for now. So I'm going to go ahead and click Submit. So this then sends the updates to our GIS in real time. This feature will now appear in Cityworks Office in the mobile native app. So let's take a look at Cityworks now. Let's say the next day there's a windstorm and we now want to do an inspection on that tree since it was newly planted and may have some damage. So I'm going to open up the Cityworks mobile native app to create a new inspection. So before we log in, let's take a quick look at our settings. When integrating the mobile native app in Collector, there are some key settings here. First, we need to ensure our host and site are filled out. This is pretty standard information for the app. The key component here is ensuring the ArcGIS Online login setting is toggled to on. This allows the Cityworks native app to leverage your ArcGIS Online user profile to integrate with Collector. One thing to note here is that only one of the login settings can be toggled on. You can use either ArcGIS Online or Portal for ArcGIS, but not both at the same time. All right, let's click Save at the top right to save these settings. And now I'm going to go ahead and log in. So since the integration between Cityworks and the Esri apps require that the usernames be the same within Cityworks and ArcGIS Online, I will sign in with our same field crew credentials. So for those of you who haven't seen the Cityworks native app before, the app automatically opens the map when we first sign in. This usually takes a few seconds since it runs a full sync to ensure it has all the required data. One other thing to note is that the Cityworks native app also has location functionality, just like Collector. So as the forestry crew makes their rounds, they can easily create inspections on the fly as needed. This is extremely helpful given many assets could be impacted after a wind or an ice storm. So now that the map has loaded, we can create a new inspection. For the sake of this demo, we're going to use the tree feature we just created in Collector. So first, let's check our legend to ensure that our tree layer is selectable. Okay, I'm going to hit Done to save our legend settings. And now we can zoom to our park in the tree that we just created. To select it, we'll choose the rectangle select tool from the top menu bar. And I'm going to draw a box around our tree. At the top, it shows us that the asset has been selected, so now we can create the inspection. Down on the bottom left of the screen, we can see a plus symbol, so I'm going to select this and choose Inspection. The next page allows us to view the details of the inspection, including the template. So we have more than one inspection template configured for tree assets. When this is the case, the native app will select the default template by choosing the first one that is listed alphabetically. We need to do a tree structural inspection for this particular scenario, so we're going to change this. I'll click on Template and choose Tree Structural Inspection. And now we can create. So in here, we can start to enter some of the observations by clicking on the Observations panel. So the first question asks about any structural damage. So let's say that we notice the tree is uprooted and many of the branches are down. So I'm going to choose Yes and move to our next question. So there is some logic built into these observations that brings us to the second question to enter the concerns for the structural damage. I'm going to enter that the tree has been uprooted and that we have some branches that are down. Okay, I'm going to hit Done and move on. So this is all the necessary information. So now we can go back to the main inspection page. And now we can go view our inspection on the map. So there's a little inspection icon over the location of the work activity. It is more likely that this inspection would be created by someone else and assigned to you while you're in the field. In this case, you'd be able to see the inspection icon here as well. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we noticed that the tree has had some damage from the wind and the condition is not great. We noted this in the inspection already, but we also want to update the condition attribute of the tree feature itself to reflect this. So to update the GIS feature, we will use our Collector integration that can be launched from the inspection. So to open the inspection from the map, we can go ahead and click the inspection icon and select our arrow. Okay, so if we look at the top right-hand corner, we can see a green icon that looks like a pin on the map. This indicates that there's a location associated with the activity, so this is a requirement to launch Collector from the native app. So to launch Collector, we can select the share icon on the top right-hand corner. In the list of actions, we can choose to open this in Collector for ArcGIS. So by selecting this option, we are able to automatically pass the location value of the inspection to Collector. Collector will now zoom to this location and mark it with a pin for us. So first, I'm just going to click somewhere else on the map to remove the pin since it's covering up our tree feature. So now I can select the tree just by tapping on it. In the details window, we can click the box with the up arrow to provide us with a list of actions, and we are going to edit this feature. Okay, so I'm presented now with a reminder that my location services is turned off, and that's okay. So I'm going to scroll down to our condition, and I'm now going to change it from new to poor to reflect our inspection. And I'm going to select done and update to send this back to the office. All right, so now that the data has been updated, let's go back to the Cityworks native app and complete the inspection. All we need to do in the Cityworks native app now is to toggle the inspection to complete. So now if I go back to the map, we can see that the inspection icon has disappeared. Since the inspection is complete, it has been removed from our list of action items in Cityworks. Now I want to make sure that I sync my changes so that anyone using Cityworks in the office can see the inspection was completed. So I'm going to select our sync button in the top right corner of the app. So you'll notice that there's a red dot on it. So this is a reminder that there are changes that need to be synced just in case you forget. So now that the sync is complete, let's go back into our Cityworks office site and see these changes. Okay, so in the inbox here, we have a saved search configured for completed tree inspections in Collector. So I'm going to refresh our inbox and see if our new inspection came in. So we have our new inspection in here that was submitted at 1:16 p.m. So I'm going to go ahead and open this inspection. Okay, so we can see here that the status has been set to complete. We have our inspection date value. We can see it was inspected by our field crew, and we have these observations that we recorded from our native app. So let's take a look at the map now and see if our GIS has been updated. So I'm going to zoom in here to our inspection location. I'm going to give the map a second to re-render. Okay, so it's just taking some time, but I can still click on our tree asset. There we go. And we can see that our facility ID that we set back in Collector has been passed through, and we can see that our condition status has been updated to poor. While I think we've covered all of the main aspects of the integration between Cityworks and Collector for ArcGIS, I'll pass things back over to Jennifer to see if any questions have come in.
All right, thanks for that demo, Nicole. So we did have a couple questions that came in. So the first one here is, can I edit related records in Collector? So that's actually a really good question. So yes, you can edit related records. It is supported. So that actually includes the feature-to-table, feature-to-feature, and table-to-table relationships. One thing I just want to note about using relationships in Collector is that the use of the global IDs is strongly recommended when you're defining your relationships as well. So just something to keep in mind. Another question that came in here is, can I set up this integration on both iOS and Android devices? So it's actually also a very great question that we didn't touch on. And at this time, the integration between Cityworks and Collector is only available on iOS devices. But the integration is fairly new, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was available on Android devices soon as well. All right, so let's move on to Workforce now. And we'll see how this can be leveraged for our work order workflows. So let's start with the basics of Workforce. What is it? So Workforce is an ArcGIS mobile solution that uses the power of location-based decision-making for better field workforce coordination and teamwork. The app allows supervisors or dispatchers to assign work for field workers via a web app that they can access in the office. Field staff can then access their daily assignments, so for example, work orders via the mobile application. So why workforce? What benefits does it have to offer? Well, for starters, the field crew will have a personal assignment list for the day. So this is obviously key functionality for field staff. The added bonus is that because they are connected using workforce, it can change dynamically as the day goes on. Another benefit is the real-time and location-based information, which allows dispatchers to assign and prioritize field work on the fly and ensure that the work is assigned to the right people at the right time. In addition to this, office staff can check the status of field assignments, allowing them to quickly adapt as the priorities for field work change. The other key element with workforce is what every organization wants to see: increased productivity. So it replaces that time-consuming and error-prone manual workforce management process. It reduces downtime, and it also helps to keep those projects on schedule, or as much as they can be anyways. So what are the specific benefits for Cityworks that Workforce offers? Well, to start, there are some out-of-the-box integrations between Workforce and the Cityworks mobile native app. So in Workforce, you see your assignment list. And in order to complete all of the information that would be required on the Cityworks work activities, you can actually launch the Cityworks mobile native app directly from Workforce to do this easily. In order for the functionality to work, Cityworks single sign-on is leveraged to do this. In addition, there are ways to pass information from Cityworks out to Workforce and also pull the information back in. So this can be useful, for example, if supervisors are setting the submit to value on a Cityworks activity first, and then this can be pushed into Workforce automatically to assign the Workforce assignment to the correct field staff. In addition to this, as Workforce assignments are completed, you might want to push this information back into Cityworks and change the status of the work activities there. So what's involved in this configuration? How is Workforce configured with Cityworks behind the scenes? So I'm not going to spend too much time on this component since this is more of an informative webinar than a deep dive. However, we can note some of the components needed to make the integration possible. There are two main components that push information from Cityworks to an external application, such as Workforce, and to also pull the updated data back into Cityworks. So when a specified change occurs in Cityworks that you want to see in Workforce, webhooks can be used. So webhooks are designed to push the information to outside parties when an event occurs in Cityworks. These can be configured through Action Manager in Designer. In addition to this, the message queue in Cityworks can be used to send the webhooks at a set interval. So if you want to learn more about the webhooks, there is a link in our resources page at the end of the webinar as well. You may also want to see updates in Cityworks when a change is made in an external application. So to pull that data back in, the Python script is required. And this script will often leverage the Cityworks APIs to more easily submit information to Cityworks. So now that we understand the basics of Workforce and how the integration with Cityworks is configured, I'm going to pass things back over to Nicole for our Workforce demo.
Awesome, thanks, Jen. All right, so let's take a look at Workforce and see how we can assign and receive assignments to manage our Cityworks work orders. So I'm currently signed into Workforce right now as a dispatcher so I can see my projects. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Public Works project. And once this project opens, I can see the department's activities as well as the location and status of my field workers. Let me just check out my Workers tab. So one really neat thing about Workforce is that the field crews can report their work status. This allows the dispatcher to make educated decisions on who to assign new work activities to. The Workers tab shows the status and workload of each worker. They can also see the location on the map. So currently our field workers are based in our Toronto office. So I'm just going to click on one of our workers here. And I'm going to select my field crew. So now we can also see a pop-up with their workload information here as well as their status. So now let's check out our assignments. Okay, so the Assignments tab shows our current work orders. Each of these work orders are actually generated in Cityworks. So right now we can see colored circles next to each assignment representing their status. If I hover over these, we can see that we have 2 unassigned work orders, 1 assigned, 3 in progress, and 2 completed. So let's go into Cityworks and show this process from the beginning by creating a new unassigned work order. So I'm back in my Cityworks site, and for this demo, let's pretend there's a manhole that's in need of repair. So we can go to the Map to find this manhole. So I've already zoomed to the location. So our manhole is right down here, right next to our police services building. So I'm going to select my manhole with my select tool, and I'm going to save our selection to the session. And now we can go back to our Office tab, and we are going to create a new work order. So it's already picked up that we are using the store manhole asset, so we can just select the repair template. So we can add a comment to mention something about the repair. So for example, let's say that the south side of the manhole is sinking. Okay, and since I mentioned the manhole is located near our police services center, I'm going to include their address value. Oops. So 1 Avenue South. Okay, so now that we've completed all the necessary information, we can go ahead and create this work order. So in the back end, the trigger to create the assignment in Workforce runs at a set interval. While we wait for this trigger to occur, we can go take a look at how this is all configured in Cityworks. So I'm going to open up our Action Manager page in Designer. So Action Manager is used to configure actions such as adding an assignment in Workforce when a new work order is created in Cityworks. In general, it sends information to third-party applications, not just Workforce. This is done using actions triggered by the templates and events you create. 2 actions can be configured here: activity updates and webhooks. Activity updates are used to pull GIS attributes into Cityworks to populate fields in work activities based on their location. Webhooks, which is what we have been using in this demo, are used to push information to outside parties when an event occurs in Cityworks. So I'm going to open up our webhook for our Create a New Work Order. Okay, so we're on our action template for our Create a New Work Order webhook. The webhook we have created for this particular step in our workflow is showing now. So this is an action template which determines the information that will be sent to Workforce. So the URL here represents our assignment layer in Workforce, and then we've included parameters to pass through in our template. So now let's take a look at our action event. So let me find work order created. Webhook, okay. So the associated action event here tells us when Cityworks should send the request based on the trigger that we have set. So the event details panel contains the details of the event that triggers the work order creation. So we have specified here that when the work order's X field value is populated, or when the X field is not equal to negative 9,999, which means empty, then it will create the work order. In here, you can choose to apply this event to a specific template or to all work order templates, which is what we are currently using. So now that we've taken a look at the details on the back end, let's go back into Workforce and see if the assignment has been added. Okay, so as you recall, we previously only had 2 unassigned work orders, and we can see our new work order has now come in. Okay, so the gray symbol here represents the unassigned status. In this list, I can see the address we added to the work order as well as the projected finish date that is set to a default of 14 days on a repair template. I can also see a comment icon. So we can see now that our comment from Cityworks has carried across to Workforce. So if I click on the work order record in the list, our map will zoom to the location, and it also opens a details panel where I can see our full comment, and we can also see the corresponding work order ID from Cityworks. So now that this work order is in Workforce, let's go ahead and assign the work. We can click the Assign dropdown, which shows our mobile workers. So currently no one's online, but we know that our field crew will be starting a shift shortly, so I'm going to go ahead and assign this to them. So as previously mentioned, any updates made in Workforce require a Python script to send the information back to Cityworks. We would normally wait for the script to run at a set interval in Windows. However, I'm going to run this manually from the command line so we can see what's going on. Okay, so I've already entered our script details. I'm going to run this script. Okay, so now that our script has completed, let's go back to our Cityworks work order and refresh. Okay, so we can see now that our submit to value has been updated with our field crew information as well as the date. Okay, so all right, so now that everything's set to go on our office side, let's take a look at the work order in our Workforce mobile app. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in now with our field crew. So when I first log in, the Workforce app displays the list of assignments that have been assigned to me. Additionally, the bottom right corner of the app shows a blue circle around the user icon. So if we go ahead and click on this, we can see a list of statuses that we can set for ourselves. When you log in, the Workforce app automatically sets you to working, which is great for those users that might forget to update their status. For now, we're going to leave our status set to working and just hit cancel. So let's take a look at the work order we've just been assigned. So we can see our work order here for 135 1 Ave South. I'm going to go ahead and open it. So now we can see all the information that we saw back on the dispatcher view. And I'm going to go ahead and press start. So by doing this, we're going to update the status to in progress, which can be viewed by dispatchers and management back in the office. So next, we can go ahead and launch Cityworks from our native app to enter more information. So we can do this by clicking the action button located on the top right. And so this list of actions will change depending on the integrations that you currently have configured. So I'm going to go ahead and open this assignment in Cityworks. Okay, so let's see if this. Okay, so I had to reset our service in the backend, so I'm just going to refresh our mobile app. Okay, we're just going to let that sync. So normally on a production server, you wouldn't have to switch these sites, but since we're currently using this just on my local machine, we had to do a little bit of extra configuration in the back end. Okay, so I'm just going to go back here and we're going to start that process. So now I'm going to launch our Cityworks native app again from our work order. And so now we can see that that assignment has opened up for us. So I should mention at this point that this is an out-of-the-box configuration between the two apps, which can be set up using Cityworks Single Sign-On and Web Map Manager. So now that we're logged into the Cityworks native app, we can see this activity has been automatically opened from Workforce. So now we can complete some of the more detailed information. First, I want to add the number of hours we worked on this manhole. So I'm going to scroll down and go into my labor and hit plus. So we can see now that my crew has already been selected for us. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 hours to our field crew worker. And I'm going to hit done. So now we can go back to our work order and say this is all the information that needs to be added. So we can go ahead and mark this work order as complete. So now let's go back to the map and sync our changes. Okay, so while we wait for that webhook to load and our data to sync, let's take a look at the message queue in Designer to see how we can track these transactions as they're occurring. Okay, so this is the message queue search page, which allows us to search the details after a webhook has been triggered. As we've mentioned before, the message queue manages the process happening in the backend related to the webhooks. So there are a few options to search on this page. So the hook ID can be useful when you have a fair number of webhooks configured in your environment. It also allows you to search for a specific action template and event associated with it. So for example, right now, our webhook has the value of 3 for our ID, so we could search and filter out all of the webhooks for completed work orders. But for now, I'm just going to leave that blank. So the status is a common search option as well. If you're testing a new webhook to ensure that they are pushing to the correct information to the output application, you can check when they've been completed instead of constantly refreshing your application. So the date parameters are also very useful if you need to search for a specific date range but are not sure which template ran. So I'm just going to perform a search with no parameters right now. Okay, so if we search with no parameters, it pulls out all of the results for the range of time we specified back in our message queue installation, which I believe we have set to be 72 hours by default. So if anything is in this queue beyond 72 hours, it will be refreshed and removed. So here we can see that our webhook is still processing. The webhook actions only trigger on the interval we have specified in the message queue installation. So I believe our interval was set to about 1 minute plus about 20 seconds in processing time. So I've also been running this over Wi-Fi, so it's a little bit delayed, whereas normally this would be run on a production server that is directly connected to a network. So let's refresh and see if this has completed running yet. Okay, so it's still pending, so it's going to refresh in a few seconds. So I'm just going to open up Workforce. Oh, and there we go. So just as I switched to my Workforce tab here, we saw the status quickly update from in progress to completed. Okay, so now let's go back into Cityworks Office again and check out the updates here. So I'm going to go back to my inbox. So it looks like the updates have synced, and we can now see the record with the status of completed in our saved search down here at the bottom. So now if you were a supervisor, you could check this during the day and confirm the information is accurate before closing the work order. So let's go ahead and open the work order from the inbox. And we're going to assume that all the information is correct. So I'm going to go ahead and close this work order. So now there is another webhook that is triggered. And so this webhook will now be sent out to Workforce, and it's going to remove the activity from our Workforce assignment list since we no longer need to work on it. So I'm going to let this run, and I'm going to pass things back over to Jennifer to see if any questions have come in.
All right, thanks, Nicole. So we actually did have quite a few questions come in on Workforce. So I'm just going to touch on about 2 of them right now, and then hopefully we'll get to some of the other questions at the end of the webinar, or perhaps you guys can email us after if we can't get to them. So the first question here is, can I use my public ArcGIS Online account with Workforce? And the answer is Workforce actually requires that you're part of an ArcGIS organization in order to use the app. So at this time, public accounts are not supported. And the other question is, what mobile platforms can we use? We already have some Android devices. Can we use these? And the answer is yes, you can use Android devices. So both iOS and Android are supported platforms for Workforce. All right, so far we have reviewed apps that will enhance our GIS editing and work order workflow. So now let's take a look at Survey 123, which can be leveraged for inspections or asset attribute updates. So what is Survey 123? So this is an app that allows the configuration of simple and intuitive forms which allow end users to capture specific information. The benefit for asset management is that the form can be configured to record specific inspection observations. In addition to this, the forms can include calculations, questions based on conditional logic, support for data capture using barcode scanning, and more. So how does all of this work? Well, you create questions for your survey form in an easy-to-use interface and then publish the survey to your ArcGIS organization. So this creates the feature layer for data collection as well as the form item used by the app to collect the data. So now let's talk about some of the benefits of using Survey 123. So when I started working with Survey 123, one of the first things that I noticed was how simple the forms are for the end user. And in addition to this, the interface to build the forms is also very easy to use and allows them to be constructed quickly. Another very obvious benefit is the elimination of using paper forms. Survey 123 also provides out-of-the-box reporting tools online that allow you to quickly view the results of your data collection on a map, in a table, and in charts and graphs. And lastly, Survey 123 can work offline. So the mobile user just needs to download the form while they're collected and then simply upload the results when they're back in the office. So what does Survey 123 offer for Cityworks users, or an asset management workflow in general? Well, there's two key components. The first is that Survey 123 can be leveraged for collecting point features to assist with building your GIS database. So this app is a great option since the form allows users to easily enter attribute information. The second benefit is that it can be used to create inspections with observation information. So to do this, a survey can be designed to match the inspection observations that you have in Cityworks. With a little configuration on the back end, these answers can then be passed directly into Cityworks to create a new inspection with completed observations in real time. In addition to this, you could even build in some logic into the survey so that if a question has a specific answer, other functionality can then be launched in Cityworks. So, for example, if there's a deficiency noted in the survey, you could then have Cityworks automatically create a work order upon submission of the survey. So how is Survey 123 configured with Cityworks behind the scenes? So since Survey 123 is pushing data into Cityworks, the configuration requires a Python script in order for both applications to communicate with one another. The script leverages the Cityworks API to simplify the amount of scripting necessary to make this integration possible. All right, so let's get to the good stuff now and see this configuration in action. So I'm going to pass things over to Nicole to demo this for us.
All right, thanks, Jennifer. Okay, so let's take a look at how we can collect asset observations in Survey 123 and push these back into a Cityworks inspection. Let's say we want to do a regular inspection of park grounds. We want to ensure that the park is clean and safe for the community to use. Instead of collecting this information on paper and entering it manually when we are back in the office, we have chosen to use Survey 123 and have this information sent to our system in real time. If work needs to be done, we can send someone out the same day. The first step is configuring the survey in Survey 123. We currently have an inspection template configured in Cityworks with all of the required observations. So the survey in Survey 123 must be configured to have the same questions and answers. So to do this, we can go to survey123.arcgis.com and sign in with our ArcGIS Online credentials. So I'm currently signed in as Jennifer. So I can go ahead and click My Surveys. So on this landing page here, we can see all of our surveys, and we also have the option to create a new survey. Since we've already made our park inspection survey, we can open it using the pencil icon and take a look at the configuration. Okay, so here we have a very simple park inspection configured in Survey 123. We have configured this using the single choice question type to match our single answer observations in Cityworks. So as you can see along the right here, we have a number of options for our questions. So adding new questions to a survey is as simple as dragging and dropping the question type into the survey. When you're all done configuring the survey, you can choose to publish, which will allow your mobile users to access the survey from their device. So this particular survey has already been published, so let's take a look at the final results in Survey 123 mobile app. Okay, so I have the Survey 123 app open, and I'm currently logged in as my field crew user. So now one thing to note is that the survey needs to be downloaded to the app prior to use. So if you're in a browser, then there is no need for this extra step. So since I'm using the Survey 123 app, I have already downloaded the survey to the device for this demo. So let's open our park inspection survey and choose to start collecting features. Okay, so as Jennifer mentioned, you can see that Survey 123 interface is fairly clean and simple, making it easy for non-technical staff. So let's go through some of the questions here. So our toilet and change facility safe? I'm going to say yes. Our toilet change facility is clean? Yes. Limbs down tree issues? No. And let's say that there is some graffiti in the park, but we don't see any sidewalk, pavement, or parking lot issues. So now that we're done our survey, we can click the check mark at the bottom to submit. This prompts the app to tell you whether or not the device is online and the options you have for submission. So since we're online, we can choose to submit now. If we were offline, we could submit it later once we have a connection. So Survey 123 is currently passing all of my choices back to ArcGIS Online right now. And so all of our sent surveys will appear under the Sent tab at the bottom here, so we can always review it again later. So now that the survey has been submitted in Survey 123, our next step on the integration side is to create the corresponding inspection in Cityworks. As Jennifer previously mentioned, there is a Python script in the back end that is scheduled to run at a set interval to check for the newly completed surveys. So instead of waiting for this to run again, I'm going to run it from our command prompt. Okay, so what's happening in the back end to make all of this work? Well, the Python script is looking for any completed surveys that do not have a corresponding inspection ID in Cityworks. It then generates a new inspection using the Cityworks API and populates it with the Survey 123 observations. When this is done, when it is done making the inspection, the script will update the Survey 123 record with the related Cityworks inspection ID. So the next time the script runs, it will bypass any survey with this field already populated and only update our new surveys. Okay, so let's open Cityworks Office now and take a look to see if our inspection is there. Okay, so we have a Survey 123 Park Inspection Save Search configured. So we currently have 3 results, but I'm just going to go ahead and do a refresh. Okay, so now we can see we have 4 results. We have a new inspection that came in this afternoon at 1:45 p.m. So I'm going to go ahead and open the inspection. Okay, so we can see here our status has been set to complete and our inspection date has passed through. And now we can see the observations that have come through from our Survey 123 survey. Okay, so since we've covered this pretty quickly, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Jennifer or myself after the webinar. So I'm going to pass things back over to Jennifer right now to see if any questions have come in the meantime.
All right, thanks, Nicole. So we do have a couple questions that came in about this as well. The first question is, can I show specific questions based on the answer from other questions? So I believe you're referring to logic. So yes, you can build logic into Survey 123, and this allows you to hide certain questions by default and show them based on the answer from another question. There's also the set rule dialog for questions where you can configure this as well. Another question was, can you update the fields in the inspection or only the status and date? So that's a really great question. And yes, you can update other fields in the inspection. So because the Python script leverages the Cityworks API, anything that's exposed in the API can be updated. All right, so now let's move over to Operations Dashboard. So we've already looked at some of the apps that are more specific to field crews. And this app actually benefits a wider range of users, including call centers and supervisors. So what is Operations Dashboard? Well, Operations Dashboard is a configurable web app that can be used to provide a high-level view of all of your operational data to the users in your organization. It provides location-aware data visualization and analytics for a real-time operational view of people, services, assets, and events. So how does all of this work? Operations Dashboard leverages web maps and layers that are dynamic. So this provides a current view of your assets and work activities. To build the interface, you can add elements, so formerly called widgets, and they are provided in the app, and these will highlight aspects of your data that are important to you. So why Operations Dashboard? Well, first of all, it provides users with one location to see all of the necessary information to make informed decisions. For example, supervisors can see assets on the map, as well as the amount of work being completed and still left to do. So this can even be broken down further by each crew's workload. The interface can be customized with various charts, gauges, and maps to highlight aspects of your data that are important to you. So instead of providing a pre-configured template with irrelevant information, Operations Dashboard puts the power of information into your own hands. In addition to this, you can provide more interactivity through dashboard elements that can be configured to interact with one another through actions and selectors. So actions are triggered in response to an event having occurred, such as an action on the map, like a filter, pan, zoom, set extent. Whereas a selector is a dashboard element that supports a selection change when when a change event occurs, and then it can trigger actions. So why would we want to integrate this app with Cityworks? So this is a very powerful and useful tool for asset management, also field crew management, and also just to visualize your work activities. So you can highlight asset conditions and visualize the work that needs to be done to help prioritize. The spatial component of Operations Dashboard is a key player in the situation as well. It allows you to prioritize by location and improve your efficiency. In terms of managing your field crew, you can check in on their completed work and what's still left to do for the day. This can be especially useful when creating new assignments or to simply just check in on the productivity of your staff. You can also track your work activities in various ways. So this might provide some insight to highlight common problems that need to be addressed differently. So let's say you see a spike in work orders to clean graffiti in a particular location. Now you have this information and you can be proactive. So instead of constantly having your team clean it up, you could go and make a request to have cameras installed in that location to deter people from the vandalism. Oh, missed one last point on that slide. So lastly, it's a great way to keep people informed on the work activities when they don't have access to Cityworks. So for example, call centers might not have access to Cityworks, but they may want to see if a particular issue has already been logged or if it's been resolved. Operations Dashboards provides these users with the ability to access this information. The dashboards are also a great tool for field workers as they can be viewed from mobile devices without externalizing your Cityworks site or using VPN access. For example, using Operations Dashboard in combination with Workforce and Cityworks can provide staff with a live feed of Cityworks activities, locations of their field crews, and also the ability to manage crew workloads. Out of all of the apps mentioned today, I truly believe that Operations Dashboard is the most powerful tool for making impactful changes in your organization. So saying this, let's take a look at it in action, and I'm going to pass things over to Nicole for our final demo today.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so let's dive into Operations Dashboard. So I'm currently signed into Operations Dashboard, and I have two dashboards configured for today. So each dashboard shows a different use of the application. As Jennifer mentioned, Operations Dashboards are a great tool to share information with staff outside of Cityworks. For our first demonstration, I'm going to show you a service request portal that was designed to provide staff, such as call takers, with a quick method to look up service request information. So I'm going to go ahead and launch our dashboard. So this dashboard was configured using the Cityworks EURL layer. And this EURL is currently bringing in all of our service requests from our demonstration site. So the widgets in the dashboard have been configured against the attribute information provided by this EURL. So keep in mind, you can configure your Cityworks Save search filters and your EURL to better meet your requirements if you're implementing in your own environment. So all of the dashboard widgets are interactive, so meaning that they are responsive to selections made in each other as well as the map extent. So when a user opens this dashboard, they're presented with multiple ways to search. So let's take a look at a sample scenario. Let's say a call taker receives a call from a member of the public who is following up on a water leak request that was previously logged. So the call taker does not have a Cityworks license, so they navigate to this dashboard to review the information. The call taker must quickly search the service request and update them on the status. So let's see how they can do that. So first, the dashboard is configured using a category filter widget up here on the top right. So this widget has been set against our service request type field from Cityworks. So I'm going to go ahead and find my water leak. Okay, and after I made a selection here, you can see that our map, our status, and our list have all updated. So we can quickly see now that we have 21 water leak service requests in this extent. We can see that 12 of them are in progress and 9 of them are closed. So say the call taker has been provided with an address by the caller. We can use the Maps locator tool to quickly navigate to this address. So let's say the caller provided the address of 590 Edinburgh Road. So let's start typing this address in. And we can see here that the ArcGIS World Geocoding Service is already turning suggestions for us. So the first one looks like it's a good match, so I'm going to go ahead and select it. But keep in mind you can also configure this to use a custom locator from your own services. Okay, so the map has now zoomed to our location of interest, and we can quickly see that there are 2 water leak service requests in this area. We can check the status pie chart to see that both service requests are currently in progress. So we now have the information the caller requires without even opening the service request details. If required, we can view the full service request information by either selecting the service request from the map or using the list. So both methods will provide us with a pop-up of the EURL attributes. So the address search is currently highlighting our location over here, so I'm going to go ahead and select our corresponding service request. And now we can see all of the attributes that are being passed through from our EURL layer. So we could also do this by selecting it in the list, as I mentioned. Let me just zoom back in here. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I zoomed out too far. Okay, so this list here we can see is currently configured with our service request ID type, and then we've also configured it with the address for quick reference if there was multiple results in this list and we were using this to filter. So this list configuration is completely customizable depending on the attributes that you are carrying through with your EURL layer. Okay, so we saw how the status pie chart responded to the map or the list selection using the filter action. So the pie chart is also configured to filter the dashboard based on the individual statuses. So I'm going to zoom back out to my full extent, and I'm going to remove my service request type filter. So now our dashboard responds and updates with all of our service requests again. And I'm going to go ahead and select our in progress. So we can see that we have 83 in progress service requests, and we saw our map respond to that selection. We can do the same for closed. So we see the map and our counter as well as our list are responding. So this demonstration illustrates how we can leverage Operations Dashboard and EURL to provide staff with an easy and interactive method to view Cityworks information. By enabling actions on widgets, we can better filter and understand our Cityworks activities. As TechEv recently hosted a webinar called Power of EURL, and we have included a link to the recording at the end of our slides. So this webinar highlights some additional examples of how the EURL and Operations Dashboard can be used to not only share data, but to start to perform some quick analysis of your assets. Some of the great examples include using Operations Dashboard to identify hotspots for low asset condition scores and to predict project costs. So now let's take a look at our second Operations Dashboard for today. So we created this dashboard to provide managers, supervisors, and crew leads with a single place to track work orders as well as real-time location and status of field workers. This dashboard is unique from our first example, as it does not use the Cityworks EURL layer to access information. Instead, the dashboard is leveraging layers from our earlier Cityworks and workforce integration example. As you recall, the work order information we are seeing in this dashboard is being passed to workforce in real time by our webhooks back in Cityworks. The dashboard updates automatically as activities are generated in Cityworks, assigned in Workforce, and completed in the Cityworks native app. The dashboard also updates as field workers move around and change their work status in Workforce. So let's take a look at the dashboard components. So the web map we are seeing is showing two different layers from our Workforce project. So if I open up our layers here, we can see we are pulling in our assignments layer, which is being updated by those webhooks from Cityworks. And we have our field workers, which is being updated by our field users that are currently signed into the mobile app. Okay, so now on the left, we have a list of our field workers from Workforce. So this list is updating regularly to show the status of our workers and is also configured to use the follow feature action. So I'm going to go ahead and select our field crew. Okay, so it's just a little bit slow to render our workers layer, but as you can see here, our location is corresponding. There we go, it just came in. So the map has now zoomed to the location of our worker, and the follow feature is enabled. So the map will zoom to their location and start to follow them as they move around. So for example, if a street sweeper was signed into Workforce prior to starting the route, we could see their progress in real time. And we also have our pop-up here showing the exact time that they were last active. So I'm just going to close out of here, and I'm going to go back to our data in the Lethbridge. So as you remember, we are currently in the Toronto office, so that's why our location was changed. Okay, and we're just going to let the map render. Perfect. So there's also an indicator that is showing a quick count of currently active field workers. So once again, this count will update automatically as workers change their status in the Workforce mobile app. So this could be handy for large field crews. So a second list widget is configured to show all of our active work orders. So these are the work orders that have been passed from passed by Cityworks to Workforce and have been signed to a field worker. So this list displays the work order number and type from Cityworks, and it's sorted based on due date and priority. So this is also interactive. So if I were to select some of our work orders from this list, we're going to zoom to it. So sorry, there's just a little bit of a delay with our rendering. There we go. Okay, so now we can see our complete information. But what is really cool is if I come back to my full extent, is we've also configured our graph widgets to filter our active work orders and our map. So we can quickly see now our 3 in progress work orders. So I'm going to clear out of there. And we can also do the same action to filter by our field worker. So we can quickly see our workload. So let's select our field crew. And we can see the 3 work orders that have been assigned to them as well as their location. So the last feature here is this unassigned work order warning widget. So this is telling us that there are 2 work orders currently in this queue. So this queue is being updated as work orders are sent from Cityworks into Workforce. So until they are assigned to a field worker, they are going to show up in this queue here. So for quick reference, we can launch our dispatcher view. Okay, and we can open up one of our unassigned work orders. We can go ahead and assign it to our field crew. And now we can see our dashboard has updated automatically. So our queue now only has 1 work order remaining. Our field crew work staff has 4 assigned work orders instead of 3. And now we can see our pothole repair is showing up in their list. So as you can see from this dashboard, Operations Dashboard provides a single location to track Cityworks work orders and manage our field crews. So this dashboard can also be accessed from mobile devices, so it's great for managers and supervisors who are on the go or working from their outside of their organization's network. So this is also a great example of how we can use location tracking to help manage our field activities. So on that topic, Esri will be introducing a new mobile app in 2019 to expand on location tracking abilities. So I'm going to pass it over to Jennifer, who's going to cover the quick features of this app.
Thanks, Nicole. I don't know about you guys, but that's my favorite demo today. I just think Operations Dashboard is so dynamic and cool. All right, let's get back to it. So as Nicole mentioned, Esri recently announced a new addition to the mobile app platform. So Tracker for ArcGIS was demonstrated at the Esri User Conference in San Diego this summer. This app provides field workers with the ability to share their previous locations while in the field. Location information can then be shared with other Esri mobile apps and synced to ArcGIS Online or a portal for ArcGIS. Another great feature is that users can schedule reminders to enable location tracking based on their field schedule. Tracker for ArcGIS is scheduled to be released in Q2 2019, and we've included a link to a blog post that provides additional details on this new mobile app. So what does this mean for Cityworks users? So location tracking is currently only available through Workforce and Collector for ArcGIS. With the release of Tracker for ArcGIS, your field staff can now track locations even though they are not using the apps. Field workers who are currently completing all tasks in Cityworks mobile application can also use this app. As demonstrated in Operations Dashboard, field worker locations can be extremely valuable for managing field crews and assigning field work. Location data from the mobile application can be added to web maps, and then it can be shared in Operations Dashboard or your Cityworks inbox. So now that we've seen all of the apps covered in this webinar, let's review what we've learned today. So first, we looked at Collector, which can be used for both data collection and can also be integrated with your inspection workflows. Next, we reviewed the integration of Workforce with your work order workflows. Then we took a look at Survey 123 and how to leverage this for your inspection observations and data collection. And lastly, we reviewed Operations Dashboard and how it can empower supervisors and other staff to make informed decisions. So following this webinar, you will be emailed a copy of the slides and can use the hyperlinks to access some online help and documentation to help get you going with integrating ArcGIS mobile apps with Cityworks. The first few links here reference the documentation to each app mentioned today. There's also a link to the webhooks documentation on My Cityworks, which we mentioned earlier in the presentation. In addition to this, you can learn more specifically about the integration of the apps with Cityworks in the third last link, which is for a white paper on the My Cityworks site. Also from Azteca is their Power of eURL webinar recording, which is more of a deep dive into using Operations Dashboard for your Cityworks data. And then lastly, we have a link to the blog post on Tracker for ArcGIS. So all of these resources should hopefully get you started. Esri Canada also has a training course coming up in November, Field Data Collection and Management using ArcGIS. So this course covers almost all of the ArcGIS apps that we've reviewed today and can get you off to a running start with understanding and configuring them. Although the next date for the course is in November, you can keep checking out the link on this page and seeing if more classes will be offered in the future. We also have another webinar coming up on October 25th, and this is Managing Enterprise Geodatabases with ArcGIS Pro. So if this interests you, feel free to use the hyperlink in the slide, which will be sent to you after the webinar. We're also now full swing into the user conference season, so the next 3 upcoming conferences are in Toronto, Ottawa, and Fredericton. I'll be at the Toronto User Conference this year, so if you're there as well, please come and say hi if you happen to see me. I would also really love to hear your feedback on the webinar. And one more item to mention that isn't on this slide is the webinar on Jumpstart packages that can help asset managers accelerate their programs using some of the tools without Cityworks. So this is on October 18th. If you can't find a link to this on our website, please email Nicole or myself and we'll get you hooked up. Lastly, we just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day and participating in today's webinar. Again, we'll be emailing you a recording of the webinar shortly, as well as a PDF of the slides. And we'll also post the webinar recording to our archive page when it's ready. We'd also like to get your thoughts on the presentation, so please fill out the survey that comes up when you exit the webinar. So we will now stop the recording and answer some of your questions at this time, but if you would rather contact us through email with your questions, you can do so. Nicole's email is listed first, so please send all of your questions to her. All right, we're just going to pause now, and we'll be back online in a minute to answer some questions. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, everybody, for attending today.